Hi, welcome to the second part of the tutorial. This time I'm going to talk about how to prepare a brand new nib. So what I'm going to be using is Nickel Zebra G nib, and it's a very good nib for beginners, and you can buy it for about $2.50 for each nib. And it's recommended to buy maybe like 3 or 4 at one go, because a nib doesn't last forever. It lasts maybe depending on use, I don't know, like I don't know, it doesn't last forever. Some of my nibs, I keep using for like months. Some of it I just discard like after a week. And you can tell if a nib is due for replacement if it starts writing kind of weird, or it just feels too sharp, or if you're used to a nib, you can tell if it's starting to act wonky. Generally, if it starts splattering a lot, then yeah, it's probably time to change a nib. And it's important to change nibs when they are due to be changed, because an old nib doesn't work very well, and it just causes frustration and ruins your work. Also, an old nib may be dangerous, because if the metal is really brittle, it might break. If you press too hard, and if it's really old, like this is a really old nib, I've been keeping it for a long time, and you can see that the tines are they're like really bad. So this nib is no longer usable. It's because I pressed too hard, or maybe I dropped it, I don't remember. But sometimes if a nib is too old, if you press it real hard, it might snap, and it has happened to me and other people several times, and you don't want something like this to go into your eye. But anyway, this is a new nib, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in my oblique holder. So it's just simple, you just push it in, and this is another holder that I have, so they're both the same, really. So some holders, you push it in and it's just perfect. It's all set for you. And when you buy a custom holder, you can tell them, hey, I'm going to be using a G nib or a Leonard principle or whatever, If it's a popular nib, they'll say, okay, I'll set it for you. For example, this holder is set perfectly for a Nickel G, so it's just perfect, right? But this holder was not really set for anything, so I gotta kind of like just push it in, and it's not really all the way in. So one way to tell is because it's kind of like sticking out too much. The point of the nib should be parallel to the center of the holder, so right here. So if you look, actually I'm just gonna bring a ruler. It's not so precise, but it's trying to make a point. It's kind of over, you see, it's like really over, so you want to like press it in harder. So I'm gonna use my pliers and just push it in a little harder. And you gotta be careful, never handle the nib by the tip, because that's bad. You might just ruin the nib, so just always on the side. So I push it in hard enough, and now I think it should be fine. Yeah, that's right. So I'm not saying that you should use a ruler and measure all the time, but it's just a good way to make sure that your nib is set well. Another way to make sure is that the eye of the nib, which is the hole should always be visible. If you pushed it all the way down that the hole is not visible, then that's wrong. It should always be out. And there's a little, space between the flange and the eye. And the nib should feel kind of secure. It shouldn't move, and it shouldn't like feel too tight, but nor should it feel loose. It should be just right. So there's the nib fully set. Sometimes there are holders that are a little small, like this. It just goes right through and it doesn't hold it well. There are some nibs that are just super tiny, and it just goes right through the flange. So for a case like that, you just gotta get, and if you only have one holder and you really want to use this nib, you grab your pliers and you kind of like press the ends of the flange so that it will not fall off anymore. So I didn't press it because I want to keep my holder like that, but that's just one thing you can do. Like here, you see, this is an old holder I have, and I've pressed it way too hard actually here, but this nib is very secure. Some nibs just fit perfectly, and I love it. For example, this is a Hunt 56, and you can see there is a kind of like a ridge right here. I didn't know what it was for, but when I put it into the holder, I realized that it fits right perfectly. So satisfying. It just goes right there, no more no less, and it's perfectly set. This is a completely new nib. I bought it right out of the shop, and now we have to prepare it. So there are different ways to prepare the nib, and you have to prepare the nib because when it's right out of the box or the shop or whatever, nibs always come with an invisible layer of oil to protect it from rusting and to make sure the nib doesn't stick together in the box. So you got to remove it because oil and ink or water don't mix. I'm gonna show you what happens if I don't remove the oil. So I'm just gonna dip it, and it looks like that. See, the ink is like blobbing up, and it looks really weird. And if I try writing with it, it's gonna be really off. And if I try flexing, it tends to block. It's not block. Yeah, any railroads, and it's just generally not cool. So what you want to do is to avoid blobs like that. You don't want blobs like that. If you see blobs like that on your nib, that means it should be cleaned. So there are different ways to clean a nib. You can use a toothpaste and wash it with soap and water. You can use a flame. You can use a potato. Yeah, I heard of people like stabbing the nib with a potato, and the alkali in the potato cleans it. That's fine too, a raw potato. But my favorite way to clean a nib is to use simple rubbing alcohol. I keep it in a jar by my desk, so you can buy a big bottle at a pharmacy. So just swirl it in and clean it with a clean paper towel several times. And I find this method works great. If your nib ever feels wonky or weird, or it's picking up fibers or whatever, then just, you know, just swirl it in some rubbing alcohol once in a while and it works. It'll work fine. You can also use Windex or other types of cleaners, but personally I just like rubbing alcohol the best because it doesn't have ammonia or chemicals in it. Just plain old rubbing alcohol. Now it's super clean, and once a nib is clean, I try and make it a point to never touch the tip with my my hands again or my fingers, because our fingers always have some kind of oil on it, natural oil, so it will dirty the nib. Even the oil from the fingers will mess with your writing. So once it's clean, try not to touch it ever again. So now I'm going to dip it, and you can see the ink is now clinging to the nib. The whole thing is coated with ink, and that's what you want. And notice that I'm dipping past the eye and not all the way into the flange, because if you dip it too much, then it's just gonna cross the flange and it's gonna be weird. Just somewhere in the middle. Takes a bit of practice, but you know, you'll get it. My first holders were full of ink because I didn't know what to do. So now that it's ready, it will write perfectly. No problems, and should last you a long time. Now I'm going to be talking about the angle of how you're supposed to write, and how you're supposed to sit, and the angle of the pen holder. And you're supposed to sit up straight, right? And your shoulder and your arm should be loose, and the table should come to the length to where your elbow naturally rests. So it shouldn't be too high or too low, just natural. And you can always add use a chair that goes up and down, so it will help you find a perfect balance. Right now I'm using a small notepad to show you exactly how I'm sitting. So this notepad is facing me straight on. That's not how I write. What I do is I angle my paper this way towards the right, and remember I'm right-handed. So before I write, I kind of place my arm down naturally. So this is my natural angle. So I turn the paper to my natural angle, so the flange writes at the 45 to 55 angle. Does it make sense? So that means my body is not actually moving. Only my body is still facing the front. It's just that the paper is angled, and my arm is at a natural position. It's not bending weirdly or whatever. I put my hand down naturally, oops, and this is my natural writing position. That way I'm comfortable and I can do whatever I want without, you know, feeling weird. So the paper is the one that angles. This is not a hard and fast rule, because you know everybody writes differently. Your holder may be different, your body may be different, your arms may be longer or shorter, whatever. So if you feel you need to bend this more, especially if you're using a straight holder, if you feel you need to bend the paper more, or if you feel you need to do this more or whatever, you know, just go for it. I'm I encourage you to do whatever it takes for you to be able to write, you know, in a best way. Now, I don't recommend if you're going to put your arms together like that and you're writing like that, you know, then you're not feeling comfortable. The main thing is for you to feel comfortable and relaxed. That way you can write. As for holding the actual pen holder, the idea is that you should do it in a tripod grip, which means your thumb, your forefinger, and your middle finger at the bottom. So, and these two last fingers are kind of like curled up. So at a side view, you will be writing like that. Oops, kind of like that. And I know you've seen diagrams of this kind of writing. So from up top, it would look like that. And you can see that it's kind of relaxed. I'm not gripping real hard, and I'm not like super relaxed either. Just a controlled hold. That way you can write. Personally, I hold my pen kind of like this, which is the tripod grip, I guess. But sometimes I've seen people hold it like that, or like that, or whatever. It's hard to change the way you hold your pen, because you know we are so used to it. So I think, you know, don't force yourself to like change what you don't have to. But if you are holding your pen like this or like that, or something weird, like, you know, like that or whatever, maybe it's a good idea to try the tripod grip. If you have something that's similar to this, then that's fine. But this is the traditional grip. There. No matter how you hold your pen, just don't grip it too hard. When your knuckles are white, you can tell that's too much. We call this the death grip, because it's like, it's too crazy, it's too hard, and you will feel your hand like it's tightening up, and it just feels too pressured and too stressful. You want to be holding it very lightly, just in your hand, lightly. And there are several reasons for this. If you really grip, you know, you feel that, oh, I can really control everything. However, you're kind of like restricting yourself. What you want to do is kind of relax and kind of like shake your hands a little, and then write, you know, apply pressure where you need, like super crazy. I would say that's an extremely important thing to practice, which is to have a light grip. The reason is also, if you're going to do something that looks free-form, it cannot be done with a death grip. For example, I'm going to write something like how I do naturally. See, I'm feeling relaxed, and my body is in its natural position, and I'm always, you know, in a position that's free to flourish and to swirl. You know, I don't feel forced or too firm or anything. Everything's fine, you know, I can just go anywhere I want. But if I hold it in a death grip, yes, it will naturally become slow and way too controlled, and it will tire the hand out, and you will feel stressed, and you will feel, you know, tired much sooner, and flourishes do not come easily, because when you're too calculated, you know, you wouldn't feel like, oh man, why am I gonna go, because I'm way too concentrated and it doesn't look natural. But if you're not controlled, you know, it's natural for you, and you feel you're free to do anything you want. So hold your pen in a light way. Don't grip it. Don't grip it too hard. Now I'm going to be talking about arm movement. There's a lot of opinions about, you know, arm movement and muscular movement and all this. So I'm going to explain the different ones that they have first. So arm movement is the traditional way of writing. It's when you use both your forearm and your upper arm, and you write from the shoulders, and your fingers and wrist do not move. So this is arm movement, where the whole arm moves and it rests on your two little fingers. So it's going like that, going like that. The whole arm moves and this does not move. Muscular movement is when the arm rests on the table and it moves from your forearm. So you see, it's on the table and it doesn't use as much energy, I feel, as a whole arm movement, but the wrist and fingers still do not move. So this is muscular movement. Finger movement is when you use your fingers. That's when you do this. You use the fingers. The whole arm is down and you use your fingers to write. Combination movement is a combination of finger and muscular. So you're kind of like doing this, you know. It doesn't really you know, you can use whichever one you want, whichever method you like. Personally, I think I use finger and muscular. I don't really pay attention to it, but whichever way you write, you know, just don't feel like you have to be confined to one thing. Like if whole arm doesn't work for you, then maybe try something else, and if muscular doesn't work for you, maybe try whole arm. You know, there's no hard and fast rule. This is my opinion, so you know, take it as you will. But for me, I like so you can see my my hands and arm is working together to do a combination movement. Sometimes my fingers move and sometimes it doesn't. So, you know, do whatever you gotta do to come up with something beautiful.